Welcome to Land of the Bible. I'm your host, David Sussman. Today, we are exploring part of Israel's biblical heartland, the region of Binyamin. The region takes its name from Benjamin, the youngest son of Jacob and Rachel. The Bible tells us that Rachel died giving birth to him on the way to Ephrat, which was a small village at the time, and in modern times has developed into a thriving Jewish city, which is actually where I live today with my wife and children. Benjamin's descendants would inherit this region, a narrow strip, but one filled with powerful moments and holy sites. It was here that tribes gathered, prophets walked, and kings arose. Beit-El, one of the region's most famous sites, is where Jacob dreamed of a ladder stretching from the earth to the heavens above, an encounter that forever marked this land as a place of divine connection. Today, this land is once again alive with Jewish presence. Modern communities have taken root on ancient ground, not merely building homes, but reviving a legacy and fulfillment of a promise God made to his people long ago. It is a fulfillment of prophecy that the children of Israel return once again to their borders. While much of the world still debates the future of this land, those who live here are building it, day by day, vine by vine, prayer by prayer. So join me as we journey through the biblical hills of Binyamin, a land of promise, struggle, and profound spiritual legacy, a land where the Bible breathes and the future is being written in the dust of the past.
Welcome to Nebi Samuel. I'm Paul, I'll be your guide today. And today we're going to walk around Nebi Samuel and look at the layers of different history. There is so much history going on here that brings us all the way back, not just to the First Temple period, but also back to the prophet Samuel and the judge Samuel himself, and the tradition of this particular site being venerated not just by the Jewish people, but also by Christians and Muslims throughout the millennia. Come with me as we go explore Nebi Samuel. Right now I'm walking through a Hellenistic street. This is just one section of the site of Nebi Samuel. The Hellenistic period is the Greek period between the 4th century BCE going all the way up until the Maccabean defeat of the Greeks at the middle of the 2nd century BCE, around 163. What we're talking about here is a major development of this city with the Greeks, as it was a major part of the road going to Jerusalem, and that didn't change going from when Joshua first conquered the area, when they took the land, right up until 1967, even in the modern period, when finally the Israeli army defeated the Jordanian army to take this particular strategic point for the road to Jerusalem. One of the major sources of income during the Israelite period for the settlement that was here was actually wine production. All of what they produced was sent to the temple as the tithes for the Levites and the Kohanim to perform their duties in the temple. All what they had was used for sales to help support the community that was here and the region around us. This Hellenistic house, folks, is really and clearly built with luxury and style in mind, We can see remnants of plaster on the walls for decoration. We see large cisterns for large water storage, showing us that the family that lived here had money, had affluence, had the ability to afford to live in the lap of luxury 2,300 years ago, where they could live with a bathtub that was private, their own cistern, which stored clearly hundreds of liters of water, as well as an extra bathtub here that they used possibly for either refilling the bathtub or maybe even drinking water, easily accessible instead of having to go all the way down to the cistern every single time. It's not bad. If you ask me, 2,300 years ago, and it's still standing today, that's pretty amazing. Okay guys, I'm going to talk a little quieter because there are people learning here, but we are in the tomb of Samuel. As you can see, there is a wall between the tomb dividing the men and the women. It is an Orthodox synagogue in here, which means that men and women pray separately. This place is free to access. You can come here up until 2 o'clock in the morning every single day except Sabbath, and you can come back again at 4 o'clock in the morning. You will often find people here all night long praying, saying psalms, talking to God, having their prayers answered, whether it be for wealth or health or pregnancy. There is always something going on here, and it's rare to find this site closed. Over the millennia, many people have come and conquered this site. The Crusaders, when they came up here and they could see Jerusalem from the hill, were so overwhelmed with emotion that they called this site Mons Gordi, meaning the mountain of joy. And they would cry and they would weep just to finally make it to the Holy Land and see the city of Jerusalem. In fact, it became such a pilgrimage that at this site, when we read the historical reports of what was happening during the 11th and the 12th century in that Crusader period, many Christians that would come during that period would dismount their horses, take off their crosses, weep with joy, and walk the rest of the distance from here, the almost 10 miles, to get to what is today the old city, to get to the city of Jerusalem.
Imagine walking where Jesus walked, where faith comes to life. Feel the Bible story unfold around you, from the green Galilee to Jerusalem's ancient streets. Experience the serene and welcoming land of the Bible, where miracles happen. Put your heart where His footsteps are. Visit Israel.
Welcome to Beit El, probably one of the most holy sites outside of Jerusalem. In fact, the Bible itself mentions Beit El more than 60 times. There is no other city in the entire Bible that's mentioned outside of Jerusalem more than Beit El. But what we're going to do now is explore Beit El. We're going to find out what happened here, why it was so significant, and how did this name get the name House of God. When Jacob fled from Esau to go north to Padam Haran to see his uncle to get wives, he stopped on the way here. The rock that I'm standing in front of is believed to be the very rock that Jacob either laid down next to, put his head on, or was the conglomeration of the rocks that formed into one on the night that we read about Jacob's dream and the ladder. When we look at this rock, we see that it's different. We see that it is unique and that it doesn't look like the rest of the bedrock I'm standing on. Was this the rock that formed together after Jacob's dream? Was this where Jacob put his head? Was this a little bit of a shelter that Jacob laid against that night? Nobody can tell you for sure, but I can tell you that the site that we're on has continually been inhabited for thousands of years. I'm standing on top of the watchtower from the period of Jeroboam and his kingdom. This is after Solomon's death, when Judah and Israel had split into two kingdoms of north and south. We are in the northern part of what was Israel in this period. And this watchtower was built to protect Jeroboam's Beit-El from the Judeans. And later on, the Romans came and added on to this watchtower because Beit-El is a site that is over 900 meters above sea level, giving us a great strategic advantage of everything in all of the hills around us and in this area. What I'm standing in front of right now here in Beit-El on the outskirts of the holy site is a burial cave. Now, as you can see, it's been hewn out of the rock and it would have been used multiple times for probably more than one family. It's very common back in the ancient times and even in today's times for people to have burial sites on or in or near, whether they be holy peoples or tzaddikim graves or events and sites of biblical nature. In this case, we're talking about Jacob and his dream, and we're talking about the site of Beit-El. So to have the burial cave here was very common. In fact, we even read in the second book of Kings in chapter 23 about Josiah. When he came to Beit-El, he actually removed the bones from these caves so that they could be given a proper burial and keep the place holy and pure for those that were the Kohanim, the priests who were not permitted to defile their bodies with dead people. The modern city of Beit-El was founded in 1977 by a group of about 16 families. They came out of here and they wanted to build a city in the Shomron. Almost 50 years later, there are close to 7,000 people living here today. It is a religious community and it has grown significantly to be its own municipality and one of the major parts of the Binyamin region. We are located about 900 meters above sea level, which is almost 3,000 feet, which gives us a nice cool summer breeze in the evening, not crazy hot days in the summer, but a much colder winter with much more rainfall. What's great about that is that in ancient times, it provided them with a major water source without the need of too much effort to collect the water they so desperately needed to survive the long, hot Israeli summers. The site we're on is clearly a holy site. It's been venerated for millennia. Behind me, the shrine is also used as a church in ancient times. It was used by Muslims, Christians, and Jews, showing how significant stories like Jacob's Ladder, the story of our forefathers, plays to all three major monotheistic religions. It is amazing to see today the connection between our Torah, our Bible, our land, and our people, and how we can continue that story today. Let's go check out more of the sites in the area and show you what else in Binyamin has been discovered. And now we are standing here in Givat HaYekivim, which literally means the hill of the wine makers, the wine presses. This is a really special site. We're located in the central western part of the Binyamin region. We're located between the Yishuv of Talmon below us and Dolev above us, and it is a really special site. We know that the places here have been inhabited from the first temple period, so around 1200, 1100 BCE, with Joshua and the conquest of the land, going all the way up until the Bar Kokhba revolt in the 2nd century CE. So why don't you join me? Let's go check out the Hill of the Wine Presses, and let's show you some of the wonders that are on this little hill. Let's go. Wow, wow, wow. Guys, check out what we just found here in Givati Ekevim. This is an olive tree. For those that aren't familiar, I have here an olive leaf, and you can see the green silvery side of the leaf, so we know it's an olive tree. It's not quite ready for harvesting yet, but the size of these trunks shows me that this is a tree that could probably compete in age with the famous olive tree of the Garden of Gethsemane, right back in Jerusalem. This is clearly centuries old, based on the fact that I think it would probably take us maybe 4 or 5 guys to hug around this tree to get our arms around it. It's big, it's huge. It may not be tall. Olive trees aren't normally the tallest trees in the world, but they definitely have some thickness to them. And who knows the sort of fruit this olive tree has been producing for centuries. Wow, let's see what else this place has. Check out what we just found here, guys. This is amazing. Look at this. We have here in Hebrew it's called a bore, or like a cistern. And what we have here is proof of its man-made shape, structure, and also the cleverness behind it. Look at how you have this rim right around here where I'm pointing, on top of the hole. What that shows us is that they would have used either maybe wood or stone to carve out the exact same shape and use it as a lid to cover the hole, the bore, when they were done using it. Wow, and there's a whole system of tunnels that I can follow either this way or that way. What an awesome sight to come with your kids, and it's free to access. I suggest you bring flashlights, clothes, shoes, water, and have a great time. Wow, how incredible is this? Based on what I'm looking at here, the archaeology shows me that this is a first temple building. How exciting is this, that I get to walk through ancient Israelite ruins? So cool. When I was doing my research on this site, I saw a few reports on Second Temple findings. That's what I'm looking for. I'm really trying to find not just First Temple, which is of course exciting, but also Second Temple, because I want to show you guys the length and breadth of the inhabitants of this particular hilltop in the area of Binyamin where we are today. What I found is another wall, another excavation here, clearly First Temple, because it's not showing me the Greco-Roman style of architecture that we would get used to in the Second Temple, Herodian Jesus periods. But what was really cool about this, if you look over here, they were so nice to carve the steps out for us so that we could easily traverse this wall. I'm glad you're still with me. I found another one of these ancient walls. Here we can actually see part of the building technique. It's really cool to think about this. Here they had larger stones on the outside, and on the inside they filled it with smaller stones, pebble, turf, small rocks, things like that, sand, dirt. So that way they wouldn't have to invest the time, the energy, and the money for the masons to take these huge stones, but they could only need to do the outside and then just use filler to make the wall solid, strong, and stable, that thousands of years later, some of it's still standing today. It's really cool, and you didn't even know it. It's all covered up by brush. Kind of cool. Takes a moment just to explore, and look what you find. Look at that. I wasn't even trying. I just picked up a piece of pottery. Now, some of you might do carbon dating and things like that, but this pottery itself is a timestamp for us. And what I'm seeing here is a piece of pottery based on its color, its size, shape, and style. It's most probably from the Second Temple period. Now, whether it was made on site, that's pretty difficult to tell. Chances are it was bought through some trade going up and down what we call the Patriarch's Road, the road from here going towards Jerusalem, all the way up and down from Egypt to Mesopotamia, Babylon, depending on, what time we're talking about. That's so cool. Thousands of year old pottery, and I wasn't even looking for it. Shh. And we're not even done. We found a really cool piece of pottery without even having to dig. Check this out. This is a handle. Part of a handle that would have gone on one of those amphora that we spoke about earlier with the wine and the oil and how they would ship and serve and ship to not just other countries, but also to the temple. What's special about the handle? When anything at all went to the temple, there was a special stamp, like a rubber stamp, but in this case, it probably would have been made out of clay or rock. And while the clay's wet, they would have stamped the handle with the ancient letters of Lamed Mem Kuf, which Lemelech, which means to the king. So that means that whatever was 10% of the tithes, this is how they would have distinguished between what is sold to the public and what is given to the temple. All that from a simple handle. So cool. Let's go.
I will bless those who bless you, God promised Abraham. Embrace this covenant by connecting with the people of Israel. From Jerusalem's stones to Galilee's shores, experience living faith through their traditions and hospitality. Your journey is more than visiting biblical sites. It's about hearts that welcome your friendship. Your presence matters. Discover Israel.
Hey! Wow, what have we got here? I think we finally found what we were looking for, guys. Oh, wow, this is amazing. What we've stumbled across here is what's called a Beit bud. What is a Beit bud? This beam, this wooden beam, not original. There's no way the wood would have lasted this many years out in the open in this element. However, the bud itself in Hebrew is this beam. This is a house of pressing. What are they pressing? The chances are olives. This is a Second Temple press. How do I know that? Based on how it's been engineered. This is how it works. First, they use the stone weights. Press it down, squash it out. First press oil, let the sediment sit, put it in the jars, the amphora, like the handles and the jars we spoke about. Then they let that go and do what they need to do with that. Temple, selling, whatever it is. Then they had a second press where they would take all of the pulp and all of the pits and put them into sackcloths. Then they would press it a second time. Now we have virgin olive oil. Why is this good? This is good for lighting regular candles, not the menorah in the temple. That's first press. Cooking, regular lamps, possibly cosmetics like soaps and perfumes, oils, creams, balms. All of this stuff was used with olives, especially with Muslims and Jews who were not using pig fat or any other animals that weren't kosher. And finally, a third press would have given them that last little bit of oil to use probably more for cooking and fuel than anything else. And then the rest could have been used for fertilizer, put back in the gardens. This is just one of many different methods of pressing olive oil during the Second Temple period. I'm standing on top of a Second Temple columbarium. Columbarium is basically a dovecote, a pigeonhole. This is how they raised pigeons in the day. They had niches in the wall which were all hand carved out. They would collect the pigeons or the doves and they would use them for food because they're kosher birds. They would use them for sacrifices, and they would even take the droppings from the floor of the columbarium and reuse those as fertilizer for the olive trees and plantations. And 2,000 years later, we've discovered that the bird droppings from pigeons and doves are actually amazing for olives. So therefore, they were able to grow bigger, juicier fruit, providing them with more oil, more money, more affluence, and more sovereignty in their homeland. This is so exciting to find these Second Temple ruins. I'm so happy you stuck it out with me. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.
Welcome to Land of the Bible. I'm David Sussman. Next week, we will journey into one of the most extraordinary places on earth, the Dead Sea region. Binyamin is a region that is rooted in the Bible, a place where our ancestors lived, prophets walked, and kings arose. Thank you for joining us today, and make sure to join us next time as we connect you to the people, places, and land of the Bible.